In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the Diamond Select Marvel Gallery. This is the Captain America PVC diorama statue. This statue stands approximately 9 inches in scale, and it's a PVC diorama of Captain America, which is based on his modern comic book appearance and features collectible quality sculpting and paint. It was sculpted by Jean St. Jean. So the statue here depicts Captain America marching forward. It looks like he is ricocheting and reflecting off several bullets that are being fired off at his shield. I had discussed this and mentioned this during the review of the Spider-Man Homecoming PVC gallery statue as well, that Diamond Select finds really creative ways to displaying their statues. Sure, you could have simply displayed Captain America standing with both feet planted on the base, but instead they've gone the route of giving him a slightly elevated leg. I say slightly, considerable elevation to his one leg. And he's still adequately balanced, as you can see on the stand itself. This stand features the stars, 2 alternating stars, one in white, one in blue, and it's trimmed as well, kind of trimmed around by these little red pillar posts. It looks slightly like his shield, kind of just more or less the colors of Captain America and more so the stars. But you can see that it does hold him up very well. The statue does have some weight to it, plastic-wise, the PVC plastic that they're using, but he's still very successfully balances himself on the one foot, so I really do quite like that. The outfit has some nice detailing here, both in the dark navy blue as well as the grays. I do find that the grays blend themselves a little bit too much to the blues. I kind of wish that they were a little bit more of a dramatic differencing in colors. I don't know why, but for some reason the costume, or more so the statue, feels muddy, even though that's not necessarily the case. Like, it does look really good, and it's got some additional shading on areas such as the boots, so it's not just the stark red on its own. You can see that they've airbrushed and added some additional like black paint to it, especially on the under areas of his soles, which has some nice added details here of the additional A and star. Despite that, though, I don't really know why I'm getting this feeling like it just seems like caked on paint. I guess it's maybe because the whites do have some additional blues added to it, that it feels like it's been caked over top of the existing plastic. I suppose of all the colors making use of, well, making up his outfit, the whites seem almost the dirtiest, as there are some additional blues. You could argue the point that the blues add some additional shading, but it does come across more so like the white's been painted over top of the existing blue plastic. The shield is a nice touch, even the bullets that are being bounced off here. I don't feel as if they kind of look as much like bullets as, to be honest, they kind of look more like blades of grass. Now, looking at the figure, it's not supposed to be based on realistic movie Cap, for example. It's supposed to be based more on comics. So you can kind of pass this off that it's a more cartoony, more comic sort of designed bullets being ricocheted. Maybe if they had added just a couple of like actual bullets that maybe could have been coming off of the shield, because again, it kind of just looks like it's grass that's growing on the shield itself. The shield is good, a nice thick shield too, and you can see how it's been strapped around Cap's arm here. Ultimately, one of the things I'm most disappointed about with the statue is actually the face. Not only does the face, I feel, look too big, so if we kind of move the statue back a little bit, the head seems like it's way too big for his torso. Based on, if we look at the statue as it is, we'll just bring the camera down for that. If you look at the statue, I feel like the head should be at least a third the size smaller. Doesn't it look as if the head may be just a tad too big on this particular statue? At least that's the vibe that I'm getting here. His face I find to be just okay. It's almost, I know it's a comic themed designed for Captain America, so to be expected, it's not going to look as realistic. But I do find that the face is too overly cartoony, and I don't know if a lot of that has something to do with the off proportions of his features. He has a really long nose, really big nose, but I think the biggest culprit on this particular one is that his eyes are way too big. His eyes being this big, I think, is what's making him look as cartoony as at least what I think when I'm looking at the statue here. Paint is okay. It does kind of feel the same way as it does, well, with the white on his arms, for example. It does feel like they've painted the flesh tone over an existing paint. There's just something about looking at it that it feels like there's too much paint that's been applied to his face. At least, again, that's what I'm thinking. But I can't help but, I can't overlook the fact that his eyes seem a little too big for me. He's got the striping, also the wings painted on the helmet there. Helmet overall, for the most part, is pretty good, but there's just something about the face that's throwing it off for me. Unfortunately, it just seems like a whole bunch of negatives. So let's talk something positive here. One thing I do like is the honeycomb bee sort of texturing that they've added to the torso. That, coupled with the gunmetal silver, which I said earlier looked like it just blended in too much. Here it doesn't bother me as much because it's got the black outlining here around where the armor plates have been added. I think when you get to the leg here, because there's no real defining black line around the gray, it seems like the gray just blends way too quickly into the blue. And again, kind of like the white here and the white on the arms, the white on the star on his chest seems like it's either not been applied enough, or it almost seems like it's been applied too much. It's been applied too much, it kind of looks like a little too chalky. But then you can also see like there's these little blue under areas kind of peeking through the white. It's probably from the blue underneath. This particular statue, I feel slightly conflicted. I'm not really a big Captain America fan to start off with, so maybe going into it I was a little bit more critical than I maybe was with the Spider-Man Homecoming. But the Spider-Man Homecoming was done really well, and I had picked up both the statues at the exact same time at the comic book store. Unfortunately, I suppose, did the review of the Spider-Man Homecoming statue first, so maybe the expectation level was a little too high, that ultimately I felt slightly disappointed with this particular statue. Don't get me wrong, this statue does things quite well. One thing that Diamond Select is very good for is finding creative ways to present a figure, especially in statue form. I do like the one raised leg of Cap as he's lunging forward, reflecting the bullets off of his shield. I like that. I like the coloring. The coloring, for the most part, the very dark navy blue mixed with the whites and the reds, come together quite nicely. I like the display base. I like the shield, but then there's a little few nitpicks here and there, one of which I find that the bullets reflecting off the shield doesn't quite look like bullets as much as it looks like just grass growing off of the shield. The colors, as much as I do like them, I find the colors bleed too much into one another, at least on the legs. The torso isn't so much the problem because they've panel outlined the outer areas of the gray that I find they are separated from that. I wish they could kind of added some depth to the leg area, because ultimately you just get gray and you get blue. There's nothing that's really separating the two from one another. And of course, the elephant in the room is the face. I find that the head is way too big for his body. And I find, even though I know I'm not a big fan of Captain America as much as I am a Spider-Man fan, I find that the face is way too cartoony for me. Granted, yes, I know it's supposed to be a comic book representation of Captain America, how he's appearing, but I do find that the face is a little bit too cartoony, and I wonder if a lot of the problem is that the head is way too big, and I find that his eyes are also way too big. If the eyes had been a little bit smaller, and maybe if his head had been a little bit smaller, I think proportionately the statue would have come together a little bit better than what it ultimately does. So unfortunately, my takeaway from this particular statue is pick this up if you like Captain America, but other than the pose that he's in, I think that's the only thing that gives this particular statue its merits. It's got a great looking pose, but I find it falls apart, especially in areas of his head. This is currently, by the way, available at your local comic book store, so if you guys are interested in picking this up for yourself, don't let this review necessarily sway you into not picking up. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice looking statue, I just think it could have been a little bit better. Today we were having a look at the Diamond Select. This was the Marvel Gallery Captain America PVC diorama statue. Kind of lukewarm to this one. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to hit that little subscribe button down below, make sure you do so. Of course, more statue and other Diamond Select reviews will be coming to this channel, whether it be statues or figures. Lots more stuff coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.